This is a 1961 Vauxhall Cresta PA. On first glimpse, you would be forgiven for thinking that it was an American classic, such as a 1957 Chevrolet Bel Air. After all, they do loosely share some design features. For instance, they both have fins, sloping rear roofs, a lot of chrome at the front of the car, and the Bel Air even has a similar panoramic front windscreen, however not to the same extent as the Cresta PA. So why did Vauxhall choose to look to the American car market for design inspiration for their new saloon car? Well, let's just say that prior to 1957, the appearance of saloon cars in the UK was somewhat lacking in comparison to the American market. Let me give you some examples. This is a 1957 Humber Hawk Mark VI. And this is a 1956 Rover P4. Now compare those UK cars with these American counterparts. The 1956 Cadillac 66. And the 1956 Chevrolet 210. Obviously these examples are just generalizations, but you get the idea. One of the first things you notice about the Vauxhall Cresta PA is the large amount of chrome on the front of the car. There's a lot of it, but it all looks purposeful and not out of place. As you move around to the side of the car, you get a better look at the panoramic front windscreen. This panoramic edge is more noticeable as you open the door and realise that the door has a section missing to allow for the shape of the windscreen that wraps around into where that section usually would be. The interior, as you would expect, is quite roomy and comfortable. As you may have guessed, there is no power steering, but as with the majority of classic cars with no power steering, once you're on the move, you barely notice it's missing. Besides, there's nothing wrong with a little exercise when you are performing your 3-point turns. I think the rear fins are a welcomed feature to the design, as it gives it a slightly more distinctive look and helps with the whole flow of the appearance. I sometimes joke with people, saying that the fins were added to the car to remind people which way is forward, as from the side of the car it looks fairly symmetrical thanks to the addition of the single wraparound rear windscreen which was added in 1960. Before then, it consisted of 3 separate pieces of glass. This car, being a later model, benefits from the larger 2.6 litre inline 6 engine, opposed to the earlier and smaller 2.2 litres. This is paired with a 3-speed column change gearbox, and optional overdrive was also available. It has an automatic choke, which seems to work well so you don't have to worry about accidentally flooding the engine. Okay, let's take it for a drive. So what's it like? Well, the steering is a little wallowy, however I am unsure if that is just this particular car, as you find that most classic cars develop a loose feel through the steering wheel over the years, and the result means it feels a little bit like you're sailing a boat. The column change gearbox takes a little bit of getting used to, trying to remember where first, second and third are located, and more importantly, trying to avoid reverse. It's a little bit like playing a game of Minesweeper, but the cost of losing is having an expensive repair bill. The comfort of the car is very good, albeit a little worn due to the heat of the engine making its way into the cabin, despite the heater being off and the temperature gauge sitting nicely where it's supposed to. Its nice padding along with the soft suspension means that you glide over bumps and roll a bit around corners, which isn't a bad thing, but probably isn't suited to these country roads. I always feel that a front bench seat makes a car appear roomier than individual driver and passenger seats, and the Cresta PA is no exception. The brakes are nice and responsive, which is no doubt helped by this particular car benefiting from the optional disc brakes. They give you confidence that you're not going to plough into the car in front of you or lock up the wheels. The engine is nice and quiet at idle, so much so that you have to give it a little rev just to ensure that it's still running. The speedo has a nice feature whereby the green line, which indicates what speed you are travelling, turns to orange over 30 miles per hour. Although you are already aware once your speed starts to rise, as the sound of the engine becomes more apparent as you begin to hear the engine work harder. The optional overdrive would no doubt help keep the revs down at higher speeds. So what are my final thoughts? Well, the Vauxhall Cresta PA is a wonderful looking car, but for me it's a car that only gets used once or twice a year on a sunny day. In my opinion, and as you would expect, it's not as usable as a later car such as the Triumph Stag, but if you're used to driving cars from the 50s, then there are far worse cars you could buy, especially as according to howmanyleft.co.uk, there are only 29 Vauxhall Cresta PAs left on the road in the UK, so it could also make for a good investment. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, then please like and subscribe and come back soon to see what other cars I will be driving.